Good evening. Your test for this Friday is going to cover chapters 13 and 14. Now with chapter 14, please know that yes, there is several new vocabulary words, but a lot of this is review, and it's rather interesting with our chromosomal disorders coming into play here. So let's go ahead and get started. What you see in this picture here, these right here are actually chromosomes. They've been taken out of a cell and they're really hard to read like that. So scientists do what they call a karyotype, and the karyotype is right here. They've basically taken the chromosomes, matched them up, because remember we get them in pairs, one from mom, one from dad, and they list them like that, and they can see what's on them, the different genes, the different traits and such. Okay, so here again is just some example of that. When they first get the chromosomes, it might be jumbled up such as this, and they go ahead and they put it in an orderly fashion like this, and this again is called our karyotype. So when scientists actually go to analyze these chromosomes in that, it's important to notice that they do photograph these when they're going through mitosis or they're copying. And this is what they're going to, this picture here is what they call a karyotype. That's that nice word there. And the first 44 chromosomes, remember you have 46 or you have 23 pairs. So the first 44 or 22 pairs are called autosomes. Auto means self, and so these are all of the chromosomes other than the sex chromosomes or what determines gender. And here's where it says the last two determine your gender. XX is the female, XY is male. And so you'll see here in this particular karyotype where this red arrow is already pointing, that is a male because it has an X and a Y. Notice the size difference on the chromosomes. Okay, so what would this be? It's circled for you. That is a normal male because it has your X and Y. And this here would be a normal female. You can see we have the X and the X. Okay, so a pedigree, your family tree. Some of you that own dogs may have gotten a pedigree for your pets, and we do these for families as well. It can show us a lot of different things, such as any disorders that might be passed down and such, and we'll look at those a little bit further in depth later on in the week. For now, take a few minutes and go ahead and fill in the information. Remember, label your pedigree. You're labeling it where you see here a circle represents a female, square represents a male, so I would put here female, here male, and so on. Go ahead and take a few minutes to label that. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and push pause to get that taken care of. Okay, here's some symbols just to be aware of. Squares are male, circles are female. A couple is going to be this square connected to the circle, and then the parents, we get this branch coming down for the parents. And here, this case, they've had one boy and one girl, and that's what we're going to go ahead. Those are the ones we primarily need. If we shade something in, it means they've been affected with whatever disorder we're looking at. If it's halfway shaded, they have a recessive gene for it. This would indicate a death in the family. Okay, so this pedigree shows the inheritance of attached earlobes. Which parent has the attached? I believe this is on your paper, so go ahead and answer these 3 questions. Push pause if you need to. And here are your correct answers. The father, and I've got the blue lines going, but the father has the shaded in section, and so he is affected. The parents have 3 children. Sorry about the writing here, but they do have 3. They have 1, 2, and 3 children, and the child with attached is this one here that's shaded in. Okay, you'll do the same thing here. Which child is married? Does this child's spouse have attached earlobes, and do any of their children have them? Push pause if you need to. Okay, so the child that's married is this male right here, because we know that because of the line attaching. The spouse does not have attached earlobes because it's not filled in, but they do have a son with attached earlobes right there. Okay, genes in the environment. This word polygenic should be in the blank here. So some traits such as the shape of your ear or eye color are polygenic. Okay, many traits partly governed by your genetics. What else can influence it? Environment. Nutrition and exercise being some of the major factors in the environment. But it could be sunlight, it could be chemicals in the environment, pollution, and things like that as well. Blood group genes. Again, we've talked briefly about blood type before. Comes in a variety of genetically determined blood groups. We get the ABO and the RH. Okay, the RH is determined by a recessive trait. And remember, it's called RH from the rhesus monkey. That was the animal that it was first discovered in. Here we have the alleles. Remember, when we do a Punnett square, you have the capital I's with the A's attached, or the capital I's with B's attached. You have IA, IB, or your recessive is the two little I's. And this is going to show you the safe transfusions. Like if you have a phenotype of blood type A, you can transfuse. You can give people that have type A or AB blood. You can give them yours. And you can take blood from those that have A and those that have O. And this is because of the antigens. Your O doesn't have any antigens at all. And the antigens is what causes that coagulation and such. If you get the wrong antigens, your blood clots, and that's what kills people with the wrong transfusion type. Okay, so here's a little bit about that. You've got your A antigens here with all the little A's attached, B's, and you have your A's and B's, and then O's just don't have any at all. And so here on your papers, it's asking you, why would O be the universal donor and such like that. So go ahead and answer those two questions. Okay, so we get into alleles. Genetic disorders may be caused by dominant, recessive, or codominant alleles. Again, we're going back into genetics a little bit. PKU is one of those genetic disorders. It's a chromosomal disorder, and people with this can't break down that protein phenylalanine. This is in so many foods, and so if somebody's born with PKU, it's actually very, very important that they take a very, very special diet. A lot of that is just a specific formula that's made for them, and think about how hard it would be going to a party where there's going to be pizza, and anything else. They can't do that. They can't participate because they can build up in the tissues, causing severe mental retardation. Now, PKU, I've outlined here the problem. It's in most of the foods that we eat. It does, this digestive or defective enzyme in the body fails to process the phenylalanine, that's what the PHE is, and so you get high levels of it in the blood, and that affects problems in thinking and behavior, causing mental retardation. Good news is when we've got babies, and this happened to you when you were a baby, they do a little pinprick, you can see that in the heel, and they test for that. So you know right away, so you don't have the mental retardation problem, we put on a special diet. Tay-Sachs disease, this is caused by an autosomal recessive allele, mainly in Jewish families. And that results in nervous system breakdown and death in the first few years of life. There is absolutely no treatment for it, unfortunately, because it is hereditary and passed down. But there's a test to see if parents are at risk of having a child. And if they are at risk of having a child with Tay-Sachs, then they've got a choice to make. Do they take a chance and have a child, or do they not? Okay, and so we see here in the pedigree that we've done, you'll see that in this first one, we've got a female that has a chance of passing it down. They're carrying it. They don't show the disease, but they're carrying it. And then we have a male, and those two get married. And so we've broken it down. They have 1 and 2 healthy carriers. These are their chances, like a Punnett square. Half of their children would likely be born as carriers, but they wouldn't be affected. 1 would be unaffected at all, and then 1 in 4. So they have a 25% chance of having a child with Tay-Sachs disease. You can see here that it affects chromosomes number 15. And this is a young child with the Tay-Sachs. They've got the breathing tube because remember it affects the nervous system, and they're in a wheelchair with the headrest and such because as the nervous system breaks down, they lose control of different things, including their breathing, and that's why the air tube. Genetic disorders dominant, autosomal dominant dwarfism. So people who have achondroplasia or are a dwarf, or Huntington's disease. Huntington's disease will lead to death. Now the crazy thing about Huntington's is most people don't know they have Huntington's until they're pretty late in life, 50s and 60s maybe, sometimes 40s, and then they have a progressive loss of this muscle control and mental function. Even though it is a genetic disease, it doesn't show up until later. And so dwarfism, that is here, you see they normally have a nice normal body, the torso, but their arms and legs are much shorter. And usually they don't grow to be very tall either. This picture here is what you're looking at is Huntington's disease. This first part is a normal brain, and this one is one that has Huntington's disease. And you can see the difference in this basal ganglia here. And as the nervous system continues to break down and such, the holes in those regions do get larger. Sickle cell, we've talked about that a little bit. It is primarily in African Americans. Actually, we do find a lot in African Americans, but also people in Africa. People who are heterozygous, so they carry the sickle cell allele, but they aren't generally affected. They are generally resistant to malaria. Okay, so here are normal red blood cells, and these are sickle cells. You can see that they're different shape, and it does kind of get caught up in the blood vessels and that as the blood is trying to go through. Cystic fibrosis, or CF, is recessive allele on chromosome 7. Common in people from Northern Europe. Serious digestive and breathing problems. I had a friend several years ago have a little girl with cystic fibrosis, and the doctors had basically told them that the little girl would die. So the parents did everything they could to save her life, and each and every day of her life, 3 times a day, they would lay her over their lap and just kind of pat her back and break up the mucus that tends to clog the lungs. And they continued to do this and continue to do this. She is now in college and doing quite well. But cystic fibrosis can be various, and you can see here things that it can affect: the frequent lung infections, an enlarged heart, trouble breathing, and it's these things that they were trying to help prevent by patting her back so often. And now what you have left are questions at the end of that worksheet. If you need to go back through the video, it is right here for you. You've got your notes and such. It is also chapter 14.1 in your book if you need to refer to there. Thank you, and we will see you tomorrow.